Welcome to Legal Nurse Podcast. I'm Pat Iyer, and with me is Ashley Moreau. Ashley is a legal nurse consultant who connected with me on LinkedIn, and we thought it would be a great opportunity for you to learn a little bit more about Ashley's journey and the lessons that she learned along the way that you can apply to your own legal nurse consulting journey. Legal Nurse Podcast is now listened to in 88 countries around the world, with the largest number being in the United States, Canada, Australia, Japan, England, and Germany. And if you are somewhere in the world, you have access to Legal Nurse Podcasts through both the video, which is posted on the Legal Nurse Business YouTube channel, and the audio channels such as Apple and Spotify and several other platforms carry our show. Wherever you are, welcome. Welcome to you, Ashley.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Let's take you from the point where you realized that you wanted to do legal nurse consulting. Where did you get that realization? What were you doing in your life when that happened?
Well, I've always wanted to further my education, further my profession, and staying in the nursing home forever was not my idea of moving on and moving up. So I had already been a charge nurse, ADON, DON, and it was time for me to move up. I had reached the final level at the nursing homes and wanted to still stay in the medical field, still stay in nursing, but do something different, something more flexible.
Okay. And how did you discover the field itself?
Just looking on the internet.
The good old internet, the source of all information.
That's right.
When you discovered the field, what was it about the idea of legal nurse consulting that you found appealing to you?
I love education. I love to keep going as far as learning different things that build off of nursing. I have a certification in forensics. I went back after 10 years to get my bachelor's in nursing. I also have several certifications other than the forensic that I can just build off of. And I love going back to school. If it was free, I would go now. I would go all the time. I'd be a full-time student.
I have felt that way in my life too, Ashley. I remember when I was in graduate school, I was so used to thinking in terms of what do I take the next semester, that I was going through the adult education booklets in our town, which were at that time printed and mailed to people. And I would flip through and say, okay, wreath creating, I can make a wreath this semester and focus on that. There's something heady about continuing to learn that resonates with you, resonates with me as well, and I'm sure with the person who's listening to this podcast.
Well, in the medical field, things don't stay the same. So you have to stay up on it and learn just to stay in the know, just to know what's going on, because things change all the time. There are new drugs, there are new diagnosis, there are new ways to treat things. So you have to stay in education.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of education, what did you do to prepare yourself for this role, for this transition?
I took the Vicky Milazzo class. I got the best package they had. I did it in about 2 months. I just sat and read and read and read. When I would come home from work, I would sit down with my binder. I like to have paper in hand, so I printed the whole book and I just sat and read, and I just loved it. I went on the internet and looked at other programs as well. Mm-hmm. And there are still other ways to get, not necessarily your certification, but go into that role. You can take classes in paralegal and build off of it that way, because there are nurse paralegal job descriptions. So I just sat on the internet and stayed with the books and kept on reading and learning and focusing on it.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned a few minutes ago, and I wanted to ask you about this, the certification in forensics. What does that consist of? And what did you learn in order to become certified in forensics?
Oh, that was a long time ago. I went through Kaplan. I did it online. They teach you all types of diagnostic tests. You learn a lot about guns, things like that. It was a great, great class. Well, it was a series of about 9 classes, and I loved it. It was at your own pace, and I just love learning all of that.
Have you sought out attorneys who handle criminal cases?
I have not. I've really stayed in nursing homes. That's my niche. I do love forensics. I'm sure I will go, try to get some cases in forensics. But right now, all of them that are coming into me are nursing homes, and I'm just going with it.
And of the cases that are coming in for you, what is if you had to categorize the predominant issue that leads to litigation in nursing homes?
Inadequate care plans, inadequate assessments, lack of documentation. With your care plan, that's how you're going to take care of that resident. That's what you're saying you're going to do to take care of them. And when you don't follow them or you don't update them, attorneys see that. It's always available. The dates are now time stamped on them. So if someone fell 2 months ago and you update it today, you didn't do your due diligence and taking care of them.
Okay, so when you say the dates are time stamped, you're referring to electronic medical records?
Right. There are very few nursing homes now that are still doing paper. There are some, but very few.
Yes, it certainly has changed the ability to go back in and add things after the fact.
Right.
In an electronic versus a paper form.
Right.
So the primary issues you're seeing are inadequate care, not planning, not updating the care plan. Are there certain outcomes like falls or pressure sores or malnutrition, dehydration? If I asked you to think about what are the most common allegations, what comes to your mind?
All of those and neglect. And that's a thing right now with not having enough staffing. And COVID surely didn't start that trend. There were problems with staffing when I was still in nursing homes. Over the last 15 years, it just hasn't gotten any better, and COVID made it so much worse. Nurses are working around the clock. They're burnt out. They don't want to go back in the field after they've had COVID. They're scared. They may not want to take the vaccinations. There are a lot of things that added on to that, but staffing was already a problem.
Can you describe to our listener what kinds of changes you saw in the nursing homes during COVID? Or I'm assuming you were working in nursing homes during COVID.
Yes.
How did that atmosphere change for you?
It was really very sad to see. Residents were stuck in their rooms by themselves with the doors closed. They ate in their room. There were no activities. The activities cart would come by, bring color books, markers, things they could do by themselves, but there was no interaction. They were taken away from, visits with their families. And it was just a very, very sad thing to see. And especially, if someone actually got COVID and had to be moved into a different room, a different area to be quarantined, they were with new staff members as well. So they were out of their rooms, out of their normal environment with people they didn't know, and family couldn't be accessible.
And did you think, or do you think that phase is going to lead to an increase in litigation involving nursing home cases?
Absolutely. Because your mental health does have a toll on your physical health. And having your family stay away and not be able to have that interaction with them and being sick and confined on top of already having comorbidities, it just adds on to it. And with the staffing, there just hasn't been enough staff to take care of residents. And it really was a good thing that nursing homes stopped admitting, because they could not take care of residents. They didn't have the staff.
Mhm. At what point during the pandemic did you leave the nursing home environment and focus on your business?
I left July of 2020.
Okay, about 4 months or so after it started. Then what did you do to focus on building your business and getting clients when you made that decision? I'm out of here. I want to be my own boss. I want to work with attorneys. How did you get your first cases?
Well, I knew ahead of time that I was not going to stay in nursing homes. And I had finished my certification in legal nurse over a year before that. And I stayed working. I took some hospice residents, things like that. I stayed working for another year, year and a half to be able to quit full time and work on my business. And during that year and a half I stayed working, I saved money. I put money every check into a different account, didn't touch it for about a year and a half. So I didn't have to worry about not having, funds to work with my business while I grew it. I didn't have to worry about, I don't have any clients right now. I have to go back into the nursing home. I have to take a part-time job. I didn't want to do that. So I thought it out really well in advance, saved up the money so I could stop working and full-time go into the legal nurse consulting. So when I did that, I just started on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is professional most of the time. Every once in a while, at first, I used to get, people that were interested in more than what I had professionally. And since then, I haven't had any problems with that. Instagram is not like that at all. In fact, the first words under my profile for Instagram is married. And I changed that last week. But, I just went full time into marketing myself, getting to know attorneys in my area. I joined the Chamber of Commerce for my parish. I live in Louisiana, so we have parishes.
Mhm.
So I joined the Chamber of Commerce. There's also a BNI group, a business network group, and they have those throughout all of the states, but they're in regions. And different offices have this rule that they will not take more than one person per occupation, and they refer you out. They refer every week. If they know an attorney, they'll give you their card, or they'll give you their contact so you can contact the attorney. So that was a great referral source for me.
Mhm. Did you get work through BNI through those referrals?
Yes, I did.
Interesting. I've heard people discuss BNI. I've not been part of it, but I know that there is a huge emphasis on making referrals.
Yes, it's not a huge referral source for me because they only let in one attorney. They only let in, one type of accountant or one type of massage therapist, things like that. So I don't have a lot of referrals from them, but I do have some, yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So you were out meeting and greeting and getting to know people. Now, at the time you were doing this, were these programs in person or virtual?
Well, I started BNI about 2 months ago, so they're in person right now.
Uh-huh.
Chamber, I started about 3 months ago. The other things I've done prior to that were just LinkedIn and getting to know people. This is a sales, whether you like it or not, it's a sales occupation. You have to get out there and build relationships with people. Attorneys, they want to know that they have preference from you. They want to know that you are a good person, that you do good work, and they want to have that relationship. They want a person they can call on and don't have to worry about the work not being good.
Mm-hmm. What happened when you got a request for a case that was outside of your scope? If it was a hospital case and you wanted to focus on nursing home cases, what then?
I do not turn them down. I don't want to say no to an attorney. I will find somebody to subcontract. I don't do them myself. If it's not my area of expertise, I don't do the work. I will find a subcontractor, and I subcontract a lot. In fact, I had a physician this morning, an OB physician, that emailed me wanting to give me his CV. And I will definitely take all of that, and I will use those subcontractors. I don't want to tell an attorney no, because next time he has a case, he's going to call the person that didn't say no.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I do not turn them down.
How do you find the subcontractors?
LinkedIn.
Before we continue with the show, I'd like to share this special announcement with you. This is Pat Iyer, and I have with me Teresa DeWitt Lynch. We have been planning a 2-day conference to take place in June of 2020, June 9th and 10th. And the focus is the LNC's role in helping attorneys with domestic violence cases or intimate partner violence. This is a topic that literally made me the type of educator that enables me to sit and share with you the planning of this conference, because when I was in graduate school, I met a woman who was beaten by her husband to the point that she was paralyzed. I wrote my report for that course. I wrote my class paper on domestic violence. I couldn't understand why she stayed with him. It puzzled me, and I went deeply into the subject. And that article, that paper became a nursing journal article. And that led to me writing more articles and then writing my first book, which was published in 1986. And my first book led to my qualifications as an expert witness, which led to me expanding my business and adding more expert witnesses and selling the company in 2015, and now returning to legal nurse consulting after a brief 5-year hiatus. Maybe you don't think 5 years is brief. As I think about it, it seemed like it went by pretty quickly to me. So this is an area that I have great interest in, is domestic violence and what causes men, and usually men are perpetrators, what causes them to lose control? What kinds of injuries do they inflict on women? How can that woman stand up for her rights and get out of that dangerous situation? All of that is a mess of different factors, pressures and stresses. Teresa is a forensic nurse who evaluates and consults on all kinds of criminal cases. And we put together a 2-day conference in January on gunshot wounds, a course on evaluating sexual assault reports and how the LNC can help attorneys. And now we are back with a focus on domestic violence. Teresa, can you share with our viewer a little bit about how we've planned this program to embed learning and give people hands-on experience?
Sure. So one of the foundational elements in evaluating a domestic violence or intimate partner or even a physical assault case is to understand the mechanism of injury and how injuries result from the different forces that could be applied to the body through different violent acts. So to kind of provide the participants some of that basic foundational information ahead of time, we will be providing different videos and information on sharp force injuries, blunt force injuries, contusions that they can review prior to the conference. So it's a little pre-conference information for them. And that will give them the foundational information to apply to the closed head injury, the strangulation, and the orthopedic injury lessons or sessions that are going to be held. And then we'll also have, so that they can apply that information immediately or directly to cases, we'll have some case studies for each of those that we'll be reviewing too in small groups throughout the course, throughout the 2 days of the course, the conference.
I find that people remember stories, they learn from stories, they love the ability to take what they learned and apply it right away. And that's what we're giving you in the structure of this 2-day conference. Hands-on experience, networking with other legal nurse consultants, giving you an opportunity to delve into the details. And Teresa, that's what we love to do, isn't it? the
Yeah,
details.
absolutely. Dig out those little pieces.
I encourage you, if you are a legal nurse consultant thinking about expanding your practice, taking on more criminal cases, or you're already working in this area and you want more in-depth knowledge to help you in your practice, check out the information at this link, lnc.tips/DV, and use that to secure your spot at the conference. If you're seeing this video after June of 2022, we will have the program available in recorded format, and you'll have the opportunity to gain the knowledge that we shared in these sessions. This is a critical area of legal nurse consulting where you can make a big difference. Sometimes the information that you help the attorney understand makes the difference between whether a person goes to prison or not. There's a lot at stake. So be prepared to share your knowledge and help your attorney clients in their involvement in this type of a case. Thanks so much. Now let's return to the show. LinkedIn, if you're listening to this podcast, you're getting a huge endorsement.
And I don't even ask for them. They just come to me. I mean, if you not friends, if you connect people in LinkedIn, they'll offer, they'll talk back to you, they'll respond, they'll send you their information. The physician that sent me his information this morning, I don't know him. I've not met him, but he found my email on LinkedIn and sent it to me. And it's great networking. And when I started working as a legal nurse consultant, taking cases, I wanted the extra practice, I guess you would say, at doing the cases. So I took all kinds of subcontract cases that had to do with nursing homes. I wanted to learn different ways of, everybody has their own paperwork forms, and I wanted to learn, different formats so I could be, efficient at taking those cases. So I took a lot of subcontract cases, and I have no regrets with any of them. I learned a lot.
Mm-hmm. When you are subcontracting to LNCs, what do you do about your concerns about the quality of their work product?
I have them give it to me a week in advance so I can read it. I will not turn anything in that I haven't read. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to put my name on their report, but if it comes from my business, I'm going to know what it says. And if I get them to turn it in a week ahead of time, I have time to redo it if it's not up to par.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. It is a problem that many LNCs experience is they know their own quality. They feel protective of their clients. They're giving their client to another person to work with, even if it's in a subcontracting arrangement.
Right.
And I have seen that transition stop experienced LNCs from being able to provide a fuller range of services because they haven't been able to comfortably delegate. Nobody can do it as well as Ashley. So therefore, Ashley's not going to give the case to anyone. And the LNC ends up working a ton of hours and possibly even getting burned out in the process.
Right, but that's not why we went to be LNCs. We left all that in the nursing home. We've been burnt out before. We don't want to do that again.
Yes.
So we have to subcontract or say no to cases, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to say no to anyone. I want to build my business.
Mm-hmm. I think we've talked a little bit about your marketing strategies, and maybe there's something that we haven't touched on. We've talked about staying active on LinkedIn, being involved in your Chamber of Commerce and BNI. Is there anything else that you are doing that's related to marketing your services?
Well, over the last month, I've started doing a marketing program every day. And every day I will put a post up in Facebook. I have a Facebook business page and I have an Instagram business page. So I take that with the LinkedIn and I'll do a post every single day. And I'll always make sure that my logo is on that somewhere, on my post, on the photo, whatever I put up, my logo is going to be there.
What kinds of things do you post?
Oh my goodness, all kinds of things. My dog was on there twice this week. He
Your
did
dog is
Monday.
famous.
I know. He did Monday and Friday. Monday, he was exhausted. He's a little English bulldog with his tongue sticking out. And Friday, he was all happy and smelling the roses. So really anything, people can connect on a lot of different levels. You know, and you'll see it on LinkedIn. A lot of people take pictures of their dog and they want to talk about politics. And that's fine as long as you're neutral. And always advertise for yourself. Always put your logo in there. Your picture, your phone number, something that they see where you're from, or they can recognize your logo.
I'm amused. I'm thinking about your dog and how happy your dog would be to know that all the people in your connections were familiar with your dog.
I'm not sure he cares. He sleeps 20 hours a day. I'm not sure he's worried at all. He just wants to be fed.
That's true. The idea that you had about legal nurse consulting before you entered the field versus how you feel about it now, has there been any change or shift in your thinking from the beginning to present?
Only positive things. I get really excited about the future. I love being flexible. And I talked to an attorney yesterday that wanted to hire me full time. And I was like, I love the flexibility. I just want to be available to my family. And that was something, and that is something nurses have in common. They're not available to their family if they work full time. I remember when I first started nursing homes, as a DON, I was the only RN in the facility. And if you're familiar with CMS, you have to have 8 hours of RN coverage per day. So I could not miss. I could not call in. I could not, move my hours around so I could take a kid to the doctor, take them to the dentist, stay home with them when they're sick. It's not available. It's not an option. I was the only RN and I had to have the 8 hours. So that has really fueled me over the past 15 years to be flexible, to be available, to be present with my family.
It's interesting the point that you're bringing up, Ashley, because as I read about the Great Resignation and the reasons why people don't want to return to working in a building, is that flexibility that we've gotten used to working at home and being available for all of those things that you just enumerated disappear when you have to walk in a corporate building and be there for X number of hours.
And I understand, that residents and patients need to be taken care of. I'm the first one to do it. I know that. But management companies have to come up with something else. They have to have someone in the background saying, I can fill in for them. I can come in 2 hours early so they can take their kids to the dentist or whatever. And there's not. Management companies have not come up or attempted to come up with anything to make it easier. I'm just not seeing it. And even now, I'm doing a lot of facility assessments for nursing homes right now for an insurance company. And there isn't anything. There's no flexibility. It's that is your entire life. And your family is just second. And for people that their family is first and they want them to always be first, the medical field just isn't accommodating for that.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great point. And yet we pride ourselves in being flexible and meeting the needs of our patients, but the staff's needs are a different question.
Right. They're unheard of, unknown. Nobody's interested.
As you think about the cases that you've handled so far, is there one that sticks in your mind as being particularly memorable?
I have a lot, and I love geriatrics. I love nursing homes. I didn't when I was younger, but when I got out of nursing school, that I knew that's what I wanted. I spent 2 months in a hospital, and I just knew that was not for me. you run around so much, you have no idea why your patients are even in the hospital. You just run in to give them medicine and take care of them, things like that. But the nursing home is totally different. And you get to know the residents. You get to know them while they're there. You get to know their families, their preferences. You get to spend a lot of time with them. So in the nursing homes, you know, that's the only thing I've really wanted to do, and I've stayed in that. The cases that come up that I have, I think that all of them are just really sad. I don't see anything that came out of them that was good. I mean, I see a lot with wounds. I see a lot that, you know, they haven't charted on them for days and days and days. They're diabetic and they give them sugar packets when they're hungry and they're supposed to be NPO. Now, a lot of mistakes, a lot of negligence, a lot of critical values with labs and can't get in touch with the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have to have a medical director and then you have to have somebody on call. It has to be two different people that's a backup. So if the medical director doesn't answer, you can use that backup person. It could be a nurse practitioner. And I had a case in Nebraska and the facility didn't have that. They had a medical director and that was it. And critical values, Coumadin levels just got left for the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's atrocious for a facility to do things like that.
Mm-hmm. If you were giving advice to somebody who was in the beginning stages of his or her business, what would you recommend that person do?
Subcontract. A lot of people don't want to take subcontract. They don't want to share, but there isn't a scarcity with legal cases. There is enough to go around. And one day you'll need them to help you, you know, so if you build relationships with groups of people that are all different, I really don't subcontract too much with nursing home nurses, but OB and surgical, cardio, other expertises like that, I love to subcontract with.
Mm-hmm.
I want to give them the cases that I can't do, and I want them to give me cases they can't do. So there isn't a scarcity. People are worried about, you're taking my case or things like that, and that's just not how it is. Subcontract builds relationships, and it builds your business.
And it sounds like it gives you opportunities to expand your skills and also have the benefit of somebody giving you feedback on how you did.
Right. And you can actually, you know, advertise for areas outside of your expertise to get those cases in because you have someone that you know can do the work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You've answered a lot of my questions, Ashley. I'm thinking about, is there anything else that you would share with somebody who's wondering if they have the capability to start and run a business? What helped you build up your confidence? Because you sound very confident. You come across that way. And yet I'm sure in the beginning, you might have been nervous or a little anxious about taking on this
Every
new
day.
area of responsibility.
Every day, but you just have to do it. If you want to stay at home, if you want to be flexible, if you want to go into this field rather than working 8 hours a day and, you know, your family being second, you will make it happen. If it's important to you, you'll make it happen.
Well, we've established that you hire subcontractors, and I would imagine that there is somebody listening who might say, oh, I'd like to talk to Ashley about whether or not she would utilize somebody with my skills. Or they might have other questions of you. What would be the best way for that connection to take place?
They can look me up on LinkedIn, Ashley Moreau. My last name is spelled Moreau. They can look me up on Instagram as Moreau _legal_nurse. They can look me up on Facebook, Moreau Legal Nurse Consultants. They can email me at admin, ADMIN, at MoreauLegalNurseConsultants.com or my regular webpage, MoreauLegalNurseConsultants.com.
All right, and let's do those last two again. Your email address and your website.
My website is MoreauLegalNurseConsultants.com.
Okay.
I should have thought that through before I did that. It's really long. And my email is admin, ADMIN, at MoreauLegalNurseConsultants.com.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, Ashley, for sharing your inspiring journey about how you left the halls of a nursing home and went into what is now a full-time business in a short period. When people ask me how long it takes to create a full-time business, I usually say, give it at least a couple of years, sometimes even 3 to 5 years, depending upon your level of ambition and skill. And it sounds like you made that trip fast from having no cases to being in a position where you're working at home, managing the caseload that is attractive to you, and turning down a full-time job. Just yesterday, why would I want to work in a law firm when I can work at home?
Right.
And there are lots of excitements and benefits of working with a law firm. It sounds like for your style and what you're looking for in your life, being able to work in your house suits your personality and your needs just fine.
It's perfect. I love it.
Well, thank you, Ashley, for being a guest on Legal Nurse Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
And for you who's been watching this program on our Legal Nurse Business YouTube channel or listening to it on the audio channels, I thank you for investing your 30 minutes with us as Ashley and I have talked about the rewards and challenges of starting your LNC business and how you build momentum. I hope you got inspired like I did by her dedicated use of social media to stay visible, the networking that she does through the Chamber of Commerce and BNI, and the skills that she's applying in a niche area of legal nurse consulting. Nursing home cases are very different than acute care cases, and you need a level of knowledge about the environment, about the regulations, about the care issues. And you also heard Ashley share how she brings in subcontractors for other types of cases. She doesn't want to turn those other cases down. The attorney who's coming to her with a ICU case knows that she will provide the attorney with a well-qualified subcontractor, and that expands her business and her income. That model is one that we emulate, and we applaud Ashley for the adoption of that model, because that is a business growth strategy that can work very effectively on your behalf and your client's behalf. Thank you, and I'll be back next week, or click on down to the next show in the playlist and join me again for Legal Nurse Podcast. This is Pat Iyer with Annie Notestein. We have just finished a podcast. Annie is a certified integrative life coach, and she specializes in the area of self-confidence, the inner critic, negative self-talk, and how those factors affect your own sense of competence and your ability to cope with life's challenges and be a business owner. Annie and I were chatting about these concepts in the podcast and more. Annie, what were some of the key points that we covered in the podcast?
The first one is the difference between the inner critic and negative self-talk. I'm sure we're all familiar with negative self-talk. It's when you say, for example, I was really dumb to do that. And you might say it out loud, or you might think it. While the inner critic is when you hear a voice in your mind saying, you were really dumb to do that. And where the inner critic comes from is when we were little. That's when it developed, and that was to keep us safe. And so our caregivers would like us, approve of us, and keep caring for us. So the inner critic usually arises when we're about between the age of 5 and 8. And there's several kinds of inner critics that nurses are probably most prone to being affected by. And that's the belittler. So that's when you're not speaking up because you don't feel worthy that you're good enough to say what it is you want to say. So that might happen in meetings at work, where you think, well, the people around me have such great ideas and my ideas, not very good. So I won't say anything. And another one is, comparing. That's a big one for a lot of people. Comparing yourself badly to other people, always having that measuring stick out. Another one is being a martyr, taking on lots of shifts, lots of double shifts, working until you burn out, and maybe still working then. People pleasing, wanting other people to like you. People pleasers excel at taking care of other people, but they often don't know what it is that they want themselves. Another one is the perfectionist, trying to do things perfectly, and then your inner critic, your negative self-talk beating you up when you don't perform perfectly. Overanalyzing, thinking, analyzing, and not accessing the other parts of your decision-making abilities, which include your intuition and checking in with your heart. Rescuing, focusing on what's challenging for other people, but not being willing to receive advice yourself. And another one would be the inner taskmaster, just working, having that to-do list, going to bed, and not being able to sleep because that list just keeps you just keep adding to it in your mind. Let's see.
I think you get the sense from the summary that Annie just gave us that we covered a lot of territory in this podcast with some specific examples about how these factors can disrupt your own self-confidence, your own peace of mind. I encourage you to watch Annie's podcast on our legalnursebusiness.com YouTube channel. You'll find that on YouTube. It's Annie Notestein. And take a good look at what she has to share. There's also instructions in the program description about how you can get the transcripts of our podcasts. If you prefer to go back and read rather than listen, we have that option for you as well, and a link where you can sign up to receive the transcripts. Annie, thank you for being on the show. And I encourage you, as the viewer of this segment or listening to this little highlight, this podcast trailer, come and listen to Annie and get some strategies and an understanding about how these factors can influence your self-confidence. Thanks so much.